guys. Welcome to Data and AI Summit. Thank you. All right, welcome to the Data Engineers AI Survival Guide. The rise of AI has been staggering. This time 2 years ago, Gen AI kind of had niche success, and it was widely ridiculed by the average user for not being very good. It was easy to understand why this wasn't a threat to the status quo, and it didn't take up much space in people's heads. But this all changed in November 2022 when ChatGPT 3.5 was released for general use, marking the turn in not just what Gen AI was capable of, but also the general public's understanding of what could be accomplished. And I don't know why I'm telling you any of this, because you already know, your boss already knows, your execs already know, your mum already knows. So I put large chunks of money on most companies wanting to incorporate a Gen AI or large language models at work. And as those data people, most of this work is probably coming to you. Now, the bad news is that Gen AI is a new beast of machine learning. This isn't an extension of linear regression. No, we need unstructured data, and we need a heck of a lot of it. It is a vastly different pre-processing pipeline, and serving it to end users has to happen in under a second. This is compounded by the ease of use that online services offer. And so to the uninitiated, it makes it look oh so simple. But there is some good news. And then if we look at our timeline, we can see that this is new to nearly everyone. No one has 10 years experience of enterprise applications of Gen AI. Your average data scientist has kind of like max 18 months experience, but in reality, it's probably a lot less. A lot of AI processing is huge amounts of data, and it's also sticking together of infrastructure, which means that you are about to become very useful. This is the Data Engineers AI Survival Guide, where I'm going to show you where your skills are most needed for this new AI landscape. I'm Holly Smith. I've worked at Databricks for 5 years, and apparently I have commitment issues that prevent me from staying in the same role for more than 2 years. I have worked on many customer projects. I've lost count, to be honest. There are some things that never change, but there are a few kind of shifts with this new kind of wave of AI projects that are coming in. Now, when writing this talk, I had a few ideas about who would be listening to this. Now, I'm assuming you're a data person, you work in a smart data team, probably known as a data wizard affectionately, but you might not have much experience with Gen AI. Your co-workers, now you might be lucky, you might have a few LLM experts to hand, and they tend to come in two flavors. You've got those that are doing it for less than 2 years, so have limited experience putting things in production. Or you might be working with academics who have printed papers to their name, but they have no experience putting things in production whatsoever. And surrounding you, you probably have a lot of eyes. You've got management expectations, you've got the hangers-on, you've got the execs around you as well. So here is my advice to survive this AI trend and retain that title of data wizard. Firstly, pick the right project, or specifically match the effort to what's actually required. Don't overcomplicate it more than you have to. If the only requirement you've been given is we need to use AI, use someone else's. Use Copilot, use Glean, use Perplexity, heck, even use Grammarly. There are so many ways that you can benefit from AI without having to build, deploy, and maintain it yourself. Now, this is a talk from a Databricks person at a Databricks event. Of course, I'm going to be talking to you about many Databricks features today. So in genre of easy AI, we have all of these. We have the AI coding assistant, which I have found super sweet for debugging. You can also use an open model in SQL syntax as well now. So if you want to do like some summarization of some strings in your tables, maybe you want to classify some things, you can use our SQL AI query function, which will go and call an open model and bring that back for you. 1 million words cost about $1.30. I was surprised at how cheap this was. And it's unlikely that you spending a week like building your own internal thing is going to be more cost effective than doing something like this, so it saves you money overall. We also have dashboard apps and spaces. You can use plain English to describe the kind of charts or the kind of analysis that you want to do. And we've got a Unity catalog, which does a few cool things with labeling and I think soon documentation as well. I'm not going to dwell on this for very long. And as a data person, there's not really much to do here except take the credit. So up next, we are going to involve some deeper understanding of generative AI. So let's do a bit of a recap. So option 0, outsource, that's what we just spoke about. We've also got prompt engineering, so taking an existing LLM and guiding it towards a specific approach or a scope or a personality to generate the kind of answers that you want. We also have RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And by the end of this week, this acronym is going to be seared into your brain. This is taking an existing model and augmenting it with specific company data. Someone else has done the hard work of like, what are words even? And you're just adding the context of your Google Drive. We also have fine tuning. So now we're interchanging what words mean. So photon, not just a particle or a wave. And then finally, we have pre-training. This is the big daddy of AI projects, training a model from scratch. Now, this talk is focused on the data engineering elements of this project. If you are hoping to learn the nitty-gritty of fine-tuning, this is the wrong talk. I'm sorry. I'm sure there are many others this week that will go over that in detail. So let's start off easy with an existing model. So if you wanted to use someone else's model and put it into your application, this is completely fine. There are some things that you want to think about, though. You probably want to give the model a prompt. So something like, you are a helpful support team member who can answer questions about blah, 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 blah. My favorite example of this is a customer who turned DBRX into Denny. Advice I've received in terms of how to make a good prompt includes narrowing the scope not just to a specific domain, but also the tone of voice, maybe the geography, and tell it what's important. You can tell it to act with a certain persona, so not just be professional, but cheery and enthusiastic. Don't be surprised if your prompts change over time. When our team was building the app for Summit, I asked it if it could give me a schedule of female speakers. The answer should have been no, because it didn't actually have access to gender data, and instead it would have been making guesses based on first names. So we changed our prompt to make sure that everyone was kind of gender agnostic. Another interesting phenomenon is also that the users change as well. This is sometimes called user drift. And so already we've got a few moving parts that we'll need to keep track of. And this leads me into skills that you as a data person might already have, you can pick up fairly easily to make these kinds of projects happen. Serving the actual endpoint, sticking together the components to make the stuff work. Now, the first obvious thing is the interface, where the users are going to be asking their questions and you'll be storing your prompts. Now, you could dive into the world of web apps, or you could use Lakehouse apps. We've not announced that yet, but please be surprised when they do. Thank you. And after that, we need some serving infrastructure, so like an endpoint, and that's where we have a few options. You could do the simplest option and just call an external model service, so like ChatGPT. You pay per token, and you might want to add some rate limiting onto that. Now, maybe you want more control. You could pick a model off of Hugging Face, which is kind of like GitHub, but for models. And there's a bit more that you'll need to set up here. You'll need some GPUs underneath to do the actual processing for your endpoint. You also have to handle the connections and the scaling and the security by yourself too. Or you could pick something halfway in between and go for Databricks foundation models. They are optimized for inference. So this means like the response times and the bandwidth, and there's like some security features and isolation in there as well. So now I have my web app, I've got my model, and the last thing I probably want to set up is some monitoring to log the responses. And again, your data skills are going to be very handy here. You know, just put it quickly into an append-only table and set up a batch job to monitor some behavior. And of course, Databricks has a lot of things here to help you with these kinds of projects. If I were doing my first foray into developing a Gen AI model, maybe I was doing a proof of concept, I'd start with an external or a foundation model. You have enough to be thinking about with the rest of this stack, so maybe save kind of custom models for a second epic. All right, onto RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where you take a model that already exists, you combine it with your data, and now you can start asking questions like, what is my company's holiday policy? And for me, RAG is a great use case. I know we are at like peak hype cycle for AI right now, but I genuinely believe that when we get to the trough of disillusionment, this is going to stand the test of time. So how do we build one of these things? So first we need to ingest some words, we need to clean the words, we need to split the words, we need to turn the words into numbers, aka vectors. we need to store the word vectors into a special kind of database, and then that's called a vector database for serving. Now, so far, this looks a lot like ETL. And don't underestimate how valuable your skills are going to be here. If you have to guarantee that your AI app is going to have a 5-minute SLA for the staleness of data, all of this is going to have to be updated in 5 minutes. And if you are not a data engineer, this is going to look terrifying. So this sounds kind of obvious to us, but this advice is going to make sure that you solidify that status as data wizard. So we're going to use Spark, we're going to use Delta, we're going to have clusters that are the right size, we're going to use autoloader, we're going to incrementally process things. It's all probably going to be quite ugly, so Unity Catalog for lineage is really going to help you here. And if you have any sensitive data that needs to be excluded or scrubbed, again, UC is going to stop the wrong people from getting access to the wrong docs. So from there, we combine it to basically something similar to what we had before. We still need this AI front end. Model serving is now more than just an endpoint. It's going to do 3 things, and it's going to chain them together. With the user input, first, it's going to look for related documents, related vectors, and then bring back those sources. Then, with that information, it's going to create a prompt. It's going to have generic templates, and it's got the relevant docs as well. That then goes to our big fat pre-existing model that someone else created, and then we're going to generate the response. And of course, we probably want some monitoring after that. Ta-da! Now take the photos. Of course, shameless plug for Databricks features that are going to help you with all of this. Okay, pause for photos. 3, 2, 1, bam. All right, so it's at this point when we go into fine tuning, we're going to start ramping up the amount of data that we need to make changes to a model. Maybe we want to make it an expert in a particular domain. Maybe we want to guide it towards a specific or certain behavior. Maybe we want to make it an expert in a certain programming language. Now, I find whenever I use Gen AI, I am infuriated by its uncreative use of language. And Hollybot would be trained on archaic Britishisms. The variety of what is supplied and the quality of it can be the difference between a successful project. Sorry, this chap taking a photo here as if this is a legitimate use of fine-tuning. I salute you. Sorry, yeah, the quality can really make a break or project here. If you get it wrong, it's going to be really fragile. It's going to be really unpredictable. And in terms of, the amount of words for fine-tuning, this can start at tens of thousands of words, but realistically, this can go up to 1 million or even 1 trillion words, or billion words. And for context, all of Shakespeare plays are about 600,000 words. And who's probably going to be enabling this at scale? That's right, it's you! The faster a team can iterate on what a good data set is, the more creative and complex people can get in defining what good is. I know I talked a lot about Spark earlier, but helping teams to find the Sparky version of their assessment tools to assess what a good data set is, finding that something that either integrates with Spark or something that can be distributed or can be done in parallel. So let's take a toxicity library like Detoxify. If left to its own devices, it's just going to sit on your driver node, poodle along. But what's really needed is a data engineer like yourself to make it into an efficient UDF, either with pandas or switching to Scala or doing some multi-threaded approaches. In terms of the whole pipeline, again, it's not that different to what we had earlier. We get the data, we make our take tokens, you get the starter model, you get some GPUs, let it run for about 6 to 48 hours, get a model, and save it like any other model that we've been talking about previously. All right, pre-training, the big daddy of models. I have a bit of a personal story here. So, long time ago, Databricks kindly gave me my bonus in dollars, and I needed it in sterling because I'm in London. Now, what surprised me is I can't just go to any normal exchange and be like, hi, can I have this much money in pounds? Because they don't hold that many and they kind of laugh in your face. So I had to find a specialist in the know, pick up the phone, call him, and haggle like I was some kind of 1980s trader. And trying to find GPUs for pre-training models is exactly like that. You are not going to be able to get any GPUs in your AI. They are not standard. They are not easy to get hold of. you're going to have to find someone in the know, set up a call, schedule that time to book them out, use it in that time, and then get a model back at the end. Pre-training, so making a model from scratch, is hard. And with the greatest respect to this lovely smart audience that I have here, if you're sat here with zero experience, do not start here. That's not to mean that you don't ever get here. There are some giant upsides. Notably, it's all your own data. It's tailored to your specific business. It complies with your legal and your privacy standards, and it avoids other people's biases. So let's take a look at this from an aspirational perspective. How hard can this be? Let's go over some scale considerations. So word counts start in the billions. So think 1 million big books worth. And this is where people start hitting the limits of how many words exist about the thing. For my Hollybot of Britishisms, I'd have to use every book published from the last 10 years and hope they're all relevant. But newer models go up to the trillions, and the UK does not publish enough books for this. And so now, if we want to ingest all of this, we want to clean it, we want to turn our words into tokens, and then we need to transfer it all to our allocated GPUs to do the training, this actual model run. The actual training of a model, it can take up to a week to actually process. And the odds that you can truly iterate here are slim to none. This means that you start normally making like a smaller version of the model, and then you work up to a big hero run for the model. And one of the less obvious implications of this is that the model is static, and you actually don't get to retrain it every month or so. This means once you've done all the hard work, you still might have to combine it with fine-tuning or RAG to keep it up to date with newer data. If you are interested in pursuing this line of models, we have a suite of Mosaic products to aid you in this journey. Now, we can't have a Gen AI talk without talking about the different flavors of operations. There are many people about to say, we should make sure, and you know who's going to have to make sure? You. The engineers in this room are going to have to be the ones to implement most of this. Making the model might be about 30% of your headache. If you are responsible for project planning or sprint planning, or even just managing expectations of like really enthusiastic stakeholders, this section is for you. So DevOps obviously do it, and we've got a few things to help you with this. You know all of this, I'm not going to dwell on it. But data ops, you're now going to have many versions of data flying around. And again, we have a few things to help here. But this is not all we have. We also have ML ops. So which version of which model sits where in which data with which environment. Do not underestimate how much time this is going to take to set up. At Databricks, we have the big book of ML ops, which I've read multiple times, and I still don't understand it. So once you've got this set up, you're going to start bumping into ops from the wider org, especially budget holders. In my experience, execs are very surprised at how expensive these things are. This is not the time to do 10 Gen AI projects and see what works best. When Databricks built DBRX, we spent $10 million on GPUs. Now, I'm not saying that your project is going to be that expensive, but even if you make something at 1% of the cost, that's still $100 grand. So for you, this is kind of a blessing in disguise, really. This is going to narrow down the scope of what you're doing in your projects very quickly, and the conversation is going to go something like this. But maybe you do get some budget, and the next thing that you want to consider is security. Now, I'm not a security expert, so the section is a little bit light, but in general, here are the points that you want to consider in your system. First of all, encryption, encrypt your stuff, rotate your keys. We also have prompt injection. So this is the source of much online hilarity. This is where someone kind of jailbreaks the model to disregard previous instructions and then do something completely else, probably a bit nefarious. We also have arbitrary code execution. So if your AI assistant can do things on your behalf, like send an email, a malicious attacker could have a prompt to then email them a copy of everything that you also email. There is a great paper on this, which I really recommend you read. It was terrifying. And it gives you some great examples about like misclassifying images or forcing things to go into spam when they shouldn't have been. We also have model poisoning and unintentional sharing of data. This is two sides of the same coin for me, poor data quality. Don't put data in your model that shouldn't be there, and don't automatically include data without really checking what it is. Now, it is one thing for me to say this, but if you have 1 million books worth of data, it is going to take some real creativity to think of all the ways that this can go wrong. And finally, if you're using a third-party model, it could be malicious. Yay! Now, given that everyone is new at this, security teams included, they might just Google what's a risk and come back to you with a wish list. My recommendation as an ex-consultant, make recommendations, prioritize them based on likelihood, show some estimates, show how long these things are going to take to implement so that you're not dealing with someone's whims and wish list of what they found online. Of course, Databricks has a few offerings to make this a lot easier. Given how hot security issues are, internal projects that are going to be less of a headache than anything public facing. But we're not done yet. We also have some legal considerations. So we might be storing data that we're not meant to, like PII. We also have the legal rights to use the data, making sure someone else doesn't hold the copyright. And the next category is kind of tricky. I kind of call it like the what if category, to be honest, of legal concerns. Like, what if our model offers our services for free? What if the model slanders people? What if it says something illegal? What if it makes something illegal? And again, this also comes from legal teams who are, again, very new to this and being terrified they're going to end up in hot water because they didn't anticipate every single thing that went wrong. Again, similar to the security thing, kind of prioritize based on what you think is realistic. Something else that you want to do here is probably get someone quite senior on side who knows and recognizes that you can't spend 18 months in legal reviews. You have to deliver something. Now, your project has probably been shown across half the company, and someone somewhere is going to pop up and say, but what about the ethics? Now, I'm not immune to this idea that new tech is often a vector to harass people or to enforce harmful stereotypes. Even as something as asinine as our new WorkPass headshot supplier, it's been editing women to make them look more professional by adding false eyelashes and making them look more white. And I encourage us all as practitioners to seriously consider the impacts and how to prevent whatever you're building from making people's lives more unpleasant. And part of this is going to involve rigorous testing. When we make a new model at Databricks, we let thousands of people bully it for an entire week. The other part is allowed building alpha feedback loops to quickly flag anything that's offensive or troublesome and review it in a timely manner. If you know that your team is a bit one-sided when it comes to demographics, by all means, invite fresh perspectives to test your headshot app to discuss implications that you might not have thought of. Now, these are all serious concerns. I don't want to undermine that, but there will be a glut of people wanting to get in on this AI trend by pontificating about nebulous ideas that have no possible tangible solution and block any kind of progress. How can you deal with these types of people? Time box them, give them an outlet to voice their concerns, make a Google questionnaire, ask for research and sources. If there is anything legitimate that is being raised, by all means consider it, but do not underestimate how many people are going to pop out of the woodwork and raise issues like this. So with all of this in mind, let's have a look at some project plans. So at the core of this, I'm hoping this is seeming less daunting than when you first sat down. Getting the data, ingesting it, doing some ETL, doing the cleaning. I believe in you. You can all do this. When it comes to a modeling approach, I hope you now have enough context to have those conversations with data scientists to articulate your needs, but also how you can help them. In terms of timelines, I reckon you could do this in maybe, I don't know, a month or two. But let's face it, a proof of concept does not have business impact. So let's look at production. Get your budget, make some diagrams, start building some LLM frameworks, simultaneously show those security people, show the legal teams, actually make the damn thing, make an app, build some monitoring, finally test with some users, and then eventually go live. I reckon 6 months for this, 9 months maybe, if you have some holdups in there. Now, obviously, I have zero understanding of your project, so take this with a mountain of salt. All right, so what can we take from this? Again, primarily, I hope this has given you more understanding and more confidence to have meaningful AI conversations back in the office. don't let the hype fool you. There are plenty of people who are new at this. You already have things that are valuable here, and I'm sure you can retain that title of Data Wizard. All right, I'm Holly Smith, and this has been a Data Engineers AI Survival Guide. Have a wonderful summit.